Welcome to Stuck in My Mind podcast, the show where we dive into the mind of a regular guy on his road to self-discovery. You'll hear everyday people just like you share the latest topics, personal stories, and things they've learned along the way. And now, please welcome your host, Wise.
And welcome to another episode. I am your host, Wize. I have a very special guest on today. He's a chef. He's been traveling all over the world, but now he's in Vietnam. Welcome to the show, Paul Kennedy. Hey, Paul.
Wise, thanks for having me. Greetings from Vietnam, from Hanoi.
So how you doing this morning? Well, it's night at where you're at. It's morning here, so let's get that.
And for those that don't know, I told Wise the wrong time zone difference. So,
But it's all good. It happens. But we're still able to record, so that's good. That's what matters. All right.
yeah,
So,
yes.
Paul, what made you go to Vietnam and start cooking out there?
I'm not cooking here.
Oh, you're not cooking out there. Oh, what are you doing out there?
That's a really tough question. But what made me move out here was I just extended a birthday trip. I kept traveling back in 2018. I had a 10-day trip and I just kept traveling. And when I got to Hanoi, I decided to stay here. And that's almost 4 years now. But what am I doing? When I moved here, along the way of where I was for my birthday in Greece to Vietnam, I asked people how I could create a life outside of the US. I was talking to digital nomads and asked them what could I do, and no one really had an answer. But someone did plant the seed that I could open a hostel. A lot of expats open hostels. So when I got to Ho Chi Minh, I started looking into it. I then decided I did not want to live in Ho Chi Minh. I moved up north to Hanoi, and I opened a hostel. And then I opened a hotel, and then I opened a travel agency. When COVID hit, I paused all three and started. There's a little bit longer of a story, but I started a cookbook. And I started teaching because you couldn't even leave the country. So there's no business and you can't leave the country because of COVID. So the teaching is almost up after 2 years, and I just reopened the travel company. So that's what I'm doing here, and that's how I got here. I got here just took that step, and that made the decision to come here. And
So a lot of expats. That's what a lot of expats do. Because I've spoken to a few that I've interviewed. A lot of them teach. A lot of them. That's what they do out there is teach English, teach other things, and so. But you're the first one I hear about opening a hostel and then a hotel, and then I'm sure there's plenty more, but for the most part, everybody I've interviewed is either teaching or something similar to that.
Teaching's it really has a bad rep, but it does because for a good reason. That is, a lot of people just do it. They call it a backpacking job because people don't take it seriously. They do it just for a little bit more travel money. So I get it, and I fall into that category somewhat too, because I'm not a teacher by trade, but you don't have to be in Vietnam anyway. You have to have a degree, and you have to get certified to teach English. But it's not the same doesn't have the same requirements as teaching in the US. So yeah, a lot of people do it. But I'm not following the same path as most people. I don't live in the expat area or hang out with expats. I live in all locals. I'm the only foreigner. There's no restaurants with menus in English. There's no stores where people speak English. So I do it a little bit differently. I did the teaching just because there really was nothing else to do. But it ended up being a great platform for the book because anytime I had a question, if I taught 1,000 kids in 1 week, because the classes are big, they're like 50 students per class. So anytime I had a question, I would have over 1,000 students to ask, to confirm or deny, or like a poll. So I had a great sounding board. I didn't realize it when I took the job, but I took it because I couldn't leave the country. I couldn't do anything. So That's what I did. And now that travel's back open, a teaching job I think is up, and I'm about to visit the U.S. for the first time in over 2 years next month.
Oh, okay, all right. So, the travel company. So, do you help people from the states come to Vietnam?
Yes, a lot of people from the U.S. and surprisingly, only to me, not to them, but surprisingly, a lot of people from um, Holland and Amsterdam, particularly.
Oh, okay.
Why it's a big spot. The South has a big uh, tourism. Is a big tourism spot for China and for Russia, and the North is more Europeans, U.S. up in the north. So yeah,
Okay.
a lot of people from the U.S. It's a big spot, popular.
Oh, okay. That's good.
You should come
So,
visit.
I maybe one day maybe we can set something up and I come visit. Definitely, definitely, it would be definitely eye opening experience for me.
It's amazing. It really
Yeah,
is.
like the furthest I've gone is probably the Caribbean, and yeah,
It's. I had no intention of not returning to the U.S. That was not my plan. But
it's
Vietnam
funny.
really is that special.
It's funny that you're not the only one that said that said that. It's like I've had this guy. He's actually a good friend now. He's one of the first people I interviewed when I started my podcast, and he's in I want to say uh, he's gonna kill me for that. I think he's in Taiwan, but he's
Probably Thailand, if he's a teacher. There's a
he's
lot of
somewhere. I can't. Todd, if you hear this, I apologize. But no, he's a writer. He's a horror writer, and
oh,
we've built a great relationship. He's a great guy, but he's another one who he didn't have any intentions of staying out where he's at,
yeah.
and he found that he loved it over there. He loved it out there, doing what he was doing, and now with everything like with the pandemic and everything, he had to shift the way he moved and did things. So it was different. It was a different experience. But he's been out. He's been gone now. Whew, I want to say like 10 years. That's but it started like you. It was just a backpacking trip, and now that's where he stays. He loves it out there.
Yeah, you can't help but not like it because it's it's beautiful. There's a lot of culture, and then why is it? It's super cheap, and the food's great, obviously. Or I wouldn't be. I definitely wouldn't be here. But yeah, it's so cheap here. Why is it so cheap? So I mean, why would you turn that down if you have that mix of it's beautiful, amazing, is just gorgeous, and the food, like I said, a lot of culture, so you're constantly learning, and then cheap. I mean, what what else do you want?
No, he's definitely sorry because the way things are going here, gas prices are coming here is just ridiculous.
Yeah.
But so you wrote a cookbook. What made you write the cookbook?
So here's the part that I said it's a little bit longer of a story. I paused those three businesses, and then, like I said, this was during the pandemic, so those three businesses were of no use really,
Right.
and things are a little different here. So a local friend had a spot, and police were going to take it if it wasn't being used because don't forget it's a communist country. Um, so she wanted me to ask if I wanted to open a restaurant, and then I started thinking about it. Of course, I love opening businesses. I'm an entrepreneur, and I was like, sure, sure, sure. And then I remembered how difficult it is to own a business here, and I turned down the restaurant, but I'd already started with the recipes and trying to figure out how to replicate the local recipes. And along the way, I've always been um, a big cheerleader for encouraging anyone to travel because it's such an eye opener for me. I didn't travel. I'd never traveled before. I hated vacationing. I didn't understand the difference between the two. So I was a big proponent for that. And that's when it hit me. I could use the cookbook as a a platform to get people to travel. I could try to explain that Vietnam is not one big rainforest or jungle. It's Hanoi is as big of a city as New York City, and so it would be a great platform just to get people to encourage them to pique their interest in traveling. That was it, and it worked. I mean, it's working, meaning it's in progress. I think it's gonna anything that educates people is and helps people understand each other is going to be beneficial.
No,
So
I agree with you 100%. That's why I do my podcast, is to help people come on and have people come on and share their stories so that other people out there can see that, hey, there's regular people out there doing some amazing things. You don't necessarily have to be a celebrity and all this other stuff to live a great life and to live an amazing life. You can just be a regular person and do regular things, and you can still have an amazing life.
and 100%, 100%, and then inspiring other people to do the same and to understand that is we're doing it our response. That's our responsibility. We're doing
Uh,
our part.
yeah, I agree with you, because when I started, I started. It was me first starting ranting about work and politics and all the nonsense that was going on with the election and everything.
Right.
And I just felt like I needed to switch my strategy and switch it to something more of a conversation piece of having guests on and talking about positive content. And because that was my ultimate goal, was just to produce positive content. There was just so much negative stuff going on the internet, everywhere, YouTube. I just felt like I needed to do something creative that was positive. And so I just started interviewing people. And at first, it was difficult to get guests because no, it was because everybody's worried about numbers. They're not. And
Right.
for me, it was like I had just started. People didn't know who I was, and they're like, "What's your numbers? How many viewers? How many?" And I'm like, "Yo, I just started." And so I got ghosted a few times. People wouldn't show up, and then I started getting some yes here, yes there, and it started building and growing, and my audience started growing. And then people started sending me messages like, "Hey, I like your podcast. I think I might be a good fit for it." And I'm like, "Okay, cool. Send me your information." And so that way it started growing a little bit more. And I started realizing, hey, I'm affecting some people's lives, because I started getting messages from people like, hey, I heard this episode. It helped me with a situation where I was on the fence about starting a business, and listening to that episode, such and such episode, made me go and decide to take that risk and start my own business. And when you receive messages like that, all that does is it just motivates me to go harder and grind harder, because I found my purpose. I found something that I'm supposed to do, and that's spread people's messages and be able to share my story and other people's story, and hopefully, if one person can take something from it, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do.
Exactly, exactly. And that birthday trip I had, I went with a theme of inspiration, and I didn't know why. I've never done something like that. It sounded cheesy, but those people on the boat where I spent my birthday, they inspired me to keep traveling. And that's how it works. Is I went there looking for inspiration, I found it, and now I'm trying to inspire other people, not from a pulpit, just in a casual world, just like you. Exactly. And that's just the way to do it. Is it's still a form of giving back,
Yeah.
inspiring others to do what they want, and understand that you can, whatever it is, whatever it is.
Oh yeah, you definitely can. There's so much you can, especially now with the way digital content is being used and consumed. People are like, when before the pandemic, there was probably like 700,000 podcasts.
Okay.
After that once it started, that number jumped into the millions. And so, but people are consuming so much content and listening to so many podcasts that there are some out there, independent ones, that are very successful, that are doing well. And me, it's growing slowly but surely. It's not like I was a celebrity and I had already a huge following. So if I start a podcast, my following, no, I had to build up my audience and build up my listeners. And to me, that's like so rewarding to see your numbers grow and realize that your hard work is paying off.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's a
So
great thing.
yeah, it is. It's an amazing thing. I love it. I have a great time doing it. I wish everyone could find their passion and their purpose. It's a feeling that for me is it's just an amazing feeling. I just love it. Every time I talk about it, people can see that I'm really passionate. I really love doing this. I have a great time doing it, and to me, it's not work. I just like from starting my podcast, I've learned how to edit audio, video. I've learned how to start creating logos. There's so many different things that I've started that I didn't know prior to me starting my podcast. So being able to develop those skills and add those talents to my resume, it's been very beneficial. I've been able to gain some side jobs from it. Like my podcast isn't monetized, but since I've learned how to edit audio, people are always looking for an editor to edit their audio or to edit their video. So that's helped me make money on the side as well.
And good things always come from that when you follow your passion. And I always confuse or mention people confuse being content with being happy. They don't understand that they're not happy until they think about that question. But it's the same with passion. A lot of people don't understand that they haven't found their passion until they find their passion. I didn't realize this was my passion and my purpose until I got here. I had no clue. I thought what the life I had before, as great as it was, I thought that was happiness and that was passion. I was so far off the mark, so far off the mark. There was no social responsibility as far as giving back or inspiring others, and there was nothing to encourage others to do except for to do what I was doing. But now I understand the bigger picture. Now I get it. And I didn't get any of that before. I didn't. But I got it through traveling. That's where I learned it. You learned it on a different path. I got it through traveling solo.
Yeah,
For
and
me, that's great.
everyone travels a different path, and excuse me. But like I was telling you off air, my friend who went to Johnson Wales in Rhode Island, prior to that, when before he even went to college, he went and traveled. He went abroad,
Right.
and that's some things I wish I had done. Like that's something I wish I had done once I came out of high school. Is gone and traveled and seen the world, and it inspired him. He's an amazing chef. He's won Chopped. He's been he's the head chef at the Ritz Carlton in 42nd, and he's like, yo, this it was one of the greatest experiences of his life to be able to travel in hostels and all that, and just see the world.
Absolutely.
So that's something I wish I would have had done at that age. It's not too late. Still, I
It's
can still
not
go
too
see.
late.
I can still go
I'm
see
gonna
the
go
world.
there. I'm gonna say that.
It
Not too late.
is not. It's not. It's definitely not.
I didn't have a passport until I left. I never even had a passport until 3 days before I left. And I
Okay,
ended up just never going back.
let me say. So I never had a passport until I got with my wife that I'm with now. Um, we got together, and one of the first things she said is, "Do you have a passport?" And I'm like, "No." And she's like, "Well, you need one." So she helped me get my passport, and it's been one. It's I recommend everyone go get their passport because there's places in the world you might want to go see, and but it's crazy that a lot of us, at least from my neighborhood, I didn't know many people who had a passport unless they came from a foreign country or whatever.
Right.
But that wasn't something that was like taught to me. That wasn't something. Oh, you need to get your passport, and none of that was like I said, I'm from East New York, Brooklyn. That's not something we talk about. Most of us, so a lot of people stay in the city. A lot of people don't travel outside of the city.
Right, right.
They're like, oh, I'm staying in New York forever. I'm not never leaving, and they don't get to experience the rest of the world. And for me, I've been able to travel, like I said, to the Caribbean. I've been to the Bahamas, Jamaica, Dominican Republic. My family's from Puerto Rico, so I used to grow up and I used to go to Puerto Rico every summer. But to experience other countries and other cultures is a great feeling. It's like the food, like some of the foods you get to eat, and it's like, wow, this is different from whatever we was eating back home and all the
Right.
processed junk that we get over here.
Well, whenever I talk about it, the excuses of reasons not to travel are always the same, always. And one of the top ones is money, understandably. However, because I live not too far from you in Brooklyn, I know what people spend money. Like I'll see a really nice car in someone's driveway or an expensive pair of shoes. Let me just remind you or tell you, it costs me less money to fly. Things have changed a little bit because of gas prices, but when I first came here or during my travels back and forth, it took cost me less money to fly to Vietnam from New York than it did from New York to Charleston, which is where I lived before New York.
Wow.
So it costs less for a 24-hour flight than it did to Vietnam than it did for I forget, like 2-hour flight to Charleston. The hotels you can find, and I'm not even talking about hostels. The hotels you can stay at a hotel for a month for the price of a hotel in New York or Charleston. So and the food, the food is clearly cheaper. I can eat. I just posted something on Instagram recently. I think it was. I spent more money on one meal here than I typically do for all the food for a month. So the prices, yes, if you tell me that you don't waste any money on anything, new shoes, or you're not overspending for your car outfits or whatever it may be, there's money because a country like Vietnam is super cheap, especially if you took the hostel route. The food is cheap. Flights they're a little more expensive now that the gas prices went up. But you don't have to fly 24 hours away. You can fly somewhere closer and get that same benefit. I'm just talking about Vietnam because I know it and it is super cheap. My cost of living is like everything including my travel. I travel within Vietnam once a month, including flights and hotels, rent, food, etc. It never goes above 550 a month.
Wow.
550. It's last month it was 300 $300. I mean, I don't live in an expat area, but I do live in a nice area. It's
Yeah.
not. I mean, it's not expat and it's not nice. It's nicer than probably where my teacher friends live. But and that includes all my flights across the country, hotels when I travel, everything. Um, I know expats spend about 5 times, 7 times, 8 times more than I do. But I live and I live a local lifestyle with local friends.
I'm
I don't pay Western prices. I don't pay Western prices for anything.
sure. Well, I could imagine. I could imagine when tourists, like, what was it? I think it was a TikTok I saw or something,
Right,
and I guess this lady traveled to Cartagena, Colombia,
right.
and they found, since they knew they were American, they started adding all
Of course.
these fees and all this other. And she's like, "This is crazy. Like, how you charging us all this money for this little?" And so sometimes that kinds of sours people's experience on traveling because they feel that if they're going to go somewhere, they might get taken advantage of.
It it's okay, valid point. I do go to restaurants and I'll be with Vietnamese friends, and because I'm clearly a foreigner, they think they are also not from Vietnam. They'll give us a menu that is for foreigners that's 5 times prices. So my Vietnamese friends will say, wait a second, we have the wrong menu. We'll get the correct menu. And like I said, the price is substantially lower. However, we have the same problem in the US. If I go to the garment district in Manhattan, they charge me whatever I want. There's no prices on there. So one day I went and it was $50 a yard. Next day I went and it was five. Like we have the same problem. It's just not as prevalent. We
Yeah.
do have the same problem. It's like going to a yard sale. Do you never go to a yard sale because they charge you what you know? It's all bartering and negotiating and talking them down in price. It's all the same. It's not something that's really crazy and unheard of. Every American is used to it somewhere.
Yeah.
They are.
Oh, listen, when I travel, I just get all inclusive. That way everything's included in my package and I'm good.
And you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, I ain't got to worry about all that. I just got to worry about tipping people. And sometimes some of the places don't want you to tip, but I work in a tip based job and
Right.
we rely on it. So for me, it's like I feel like it's like I know what it is to work for your tips,
Right.
and so when I go out, I tip well. So
I do hear some expats living here. Food might be, say, $1. I don't know. Depends where if they're eating in a Western or expat neighborhood or not. But I'll hear them say, "Oh, well, we don't tip anymore because we're in Vietnam." I'm thinking, you spent $1, so you can't afford the extra. You
couple of
don't
dollars, yeah.
have to, but you have a lot more money. There's a give back associated with coming from a country like the US. There
Yeah.
is some sort of obligation. You don't have to, but it's not a substantial amount of money to you, that extra 15% off $1, but it would be to them. 15 cents.
It is.
Especially if you brag. If you don't When you brag about not tipping, then it's a problem. If you don't want to talk about it, don't talk about it. But don't talk about how you
you
got
don't
away
tip.
with
Yeah,
it not tipping or you talk them down so much money.
not
How you
cool.
took advantage of someone who's poor. Like, that's just wrong.
No, that's just not cool.
Yeah,
Definitely.
that's wrong. But yeah,
So
it's a place to come to. It's a place to visit.
so when does the book come out officially?
Who knows? Have you ever written a book twice? Man, it takes
Actually, I published a book on inspirational quotes and stuff. So
You did?
yes,
Did you use a publisher? Or did you go through this
I
whole process?
self-published. I self-published.
Well, I can't talk about that because I don't know, but I can tell you this takes a village. This is I had no clue. I I wrote my intro. I didn't have the intro written until my literary agent asked me to. And I honestly started off with if I had no I something about if someone would have asked me if I'd ever written a cookbook, I would have said no or something. And then I wish I hadn't because this is it just drags out. I thought I would just hand over this book and they'd say, thank you. It'll be in the store in X many months, but it's
Yeah.
not like that. So I don't know. I thought it was going to be the end of this year, but it looks like it might be the beginning of next year. But anyone who wants to know, they can go on my website and sign up for me to be notified. Yes.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, like we self-published. We've have actually self-published 3 books, 2 ebooks, and then my nephew's book, The Plush Life, where he wrote. It's basically for his sons. He served some time in prison and he wrote the book for his son, and now he has a youngest son now, so it's also for him as well. And we just self-published. We got a ghostwriter to help with the book itself, all the writings and everything, and we released it at the beginning of this year. And so now we're going to this convention in Orlando on Wednesday, we fly out, and it's this big huge podcast convention, like I was telling you before.
Right.
And so we're taking a bunch of books with us, because there's a section where authors get to sit there and people get to check out their books and just try to help get that book going a little bit more. We've had a couple of people buy books, but it's not easy when you self publish. It's not. It's especially if you have a publisher, then they help you with the marketing and all that. When you're a self publisher, you have to do all that yourself.
Yeah. I just watched something because I sometimes I beat myself up for going with the publisher. I was just watching some little video about someone who self-published, and she was talking about how she had to buy 3,000 books, and she had to buy storage, and she had to. The costs were going to be $70,000.
See,
Oh
we did it a smart way. We
yes,
did it where Amazon publishes the books as they go, as people order them. So
gotcha.
so we don't really have to have the overhead. We don't have to have books,
Okay.
3,000 books or whatever. We'll buy 20 books here and there and take it to events and have them sign them and sell them or whatever, or even give them away just to help spread the word. But yeah, it's not easy. It is, and that's something we've learned from all the things that we're doing as far as the podcast. We launched the internet radio station. We started a production company, and it all stemmed from me starting a podcast. It's like me starting this has
Grown.
opened the creative juices that I wasn't aware that I had. Like I didn't really consider myself an artist
Right, right.
or creator or any other until I started podcasting and realized that I did have a voice and that I had some talent at artistic talent and started creating logos and all these other things. So it's been a great journey. I love doing this.
It's amazing. It's amazing. And
Yeah,
everything you're doing is all beneficial. You
it,
know,
it's
it may it's not self-serving. It has a greater purpose, which is the route we should all take.
no, yeah, you're right. It's not me. It's like at first I felt selfish interviewing all these people and getting all these nuggets and all this knowledge and all that. And a guest pointed out to me that self-love. There's nothing selfish about you wanting to grow and develop as a human. There's nothing selfish about that. That's self-love. That's you wanting to improve and grow and learn. So it wasn't selfish on my part for wanting to do the interviews.
Right.
Yeah.
It's selfless.
All right, Paul. Now it's time where you get to plug away, let everybody find your websites, everything.
Plug away.
Plug
Well,
away.
if anyone wants to know when the book comes out, you can enter your email on my website. It's paulbkennedy.com, which is my name. Not very creative, but that's my name. And if you want to travel here, my travel website is Vietnam Travel with Us. Vietnam Travel with Us. I highly recommend, even if you don't come to Vietnam, to at least consider traveling somewhere, and especially traveling solo.
So does your travel agency just focus on travel to Vietnam?
Just Vietnam travel. Just
Okay.
Vietnam travel, because
All
that's where.
the whole country or just your area or
Yeah, the whole country. I mean, I'm in Hanoi, and most of the sites are in Hanoi. The places to see are in the north. This The north is all the beautiful man-made or natural beauty spots. Central Vietnam's the man-made spots, and the south is hot and humid. The south is just hot and humid. Not much else to it.
oh, okay. But
But yeah,
Paul, thank you
traveling
for
anywhere.
being on. This has been great. I appreciate even though we started a little bit later than we wanted to, but it's been great, man. I appreciate you coming on.
Wise, thanks for having me. Good luck with the Podfest.
Thank you.
Good luck with the Podfest, and congratulations on your book.
Oh well, yeah. It's mine's is just a little ebook, like, but the other one is his book is more. It's a actual book.
A
But I'm
book's a
I'm
book.
actually working. I'm actually working on writing my own book, which is focused on podcasting and all that. So
Do it. A book's a book.
Oh no, I've already started. So
Good for you. Do it. Keep doing it. Keep up the good work. Keep inspiring, Wise.
it's funny. It's funny because I was a guest on a friend's game show, and he's like, "Yeah, I have a media mogul on," and I'm like, "Damn, I wonder who this media mogul is he talking about." And then he introduces me. I'm like, "Oh, I'm the media mogul." Oh, wow. But I'm doing so much in media, so I guess I understand why he said that.
Right.
But it was a surprise to me.
Own it.
But again,
Wise and media mogul. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you, man. Thank you for coming by. And actually, once you get the book out, we got to have you back on to help promote the
I'd love
book.
to. I'd love to.
Definitely got to have you back on to promote the book. But don't leave just yet. I'm gonna give out shout outs, and then we can talk a little bit before I gotta go.
All right.
All right. Big shout out to my Real Wise fam, Bobby J, Brandy J. I love you guys. Big shout out to the boss lady, Fina. Love you, babe. Big shout out to our guest, Paul Kennedy, for coming through and showing some love. And as always, a big, big shout out to all the essential workers out there. God bless y'all. Be safe. You know how your boy Wise does it. Peace out.
Thanks for listening. Listen on iTunes, Podbean, Spotify, and TuneIn. Find us on social media on Twitter at wise_b_blunt, Instagram at wise_b_blunt, and a Facebook fan page, www.facebook/wise76. Check back soon for new episodes. Until next time, peace out.